The rain drummed against the windows of my cramped studio apartment as I stared at the news article on my laptop screen. The headline made my stomach churn. Tech heiress Miranda Chen receives $80 million trust fund on 25th birthday. Below it was a photo of my younger sister cutting a ribbon in front of a sprawling mansion in Beverly Hills, a cherry-red Tesla Model S gleaming in the driveway behind her. I closed the laptop with more force than necessary. According to YouTube analytics, 99.3% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. 27 years old, working double shifts at a downtown restaurant, and living paycheck to paycheck while my sister, 2 years younger, was handed everything on a silver platter. The injustice of it burned in my chest like acid. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Hope you're doing well, Alex. Saw you didn't congratulate Miranda on social media. Family should support each other." Support each other. Right. Like they'd supported me when I'd asked for help with college tuition. Like they'd supported me when I'd lost my job during the pandemic. Like they'd supported me when I'd begged them to co-sign a small business loan so I could open the bakery I'd dreamed of since childhood. "Miranda is more responsible," Dad had said then. "She's studying business. She understands investments. More responsible." The same Miranda who'd crashed 3 cars in high school, who'd been caught cheating on her SATs, who'd dropped out of college twice before finally graduating with a degree she'd never used. But she was the golden child, the one who looked like Mom, the one who said the right things at the right times. I was the eldest, but I might as well have been invisible. A knock at my door interrupted my spiral of bitter thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. My social circle had shrunk considerably since most of my friends had moved on to better neighborhoods and bigger apartments while I remained stuck. Through the peephole, I saw an elderly man in an expensive-looking coat, holding a manila envelope. Definitely not from this building. I opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Alex Chen?" he asked. "Who's asking?" "My name is Harold Winters. I was your grandfather's attorney. I have something that belongs to you." My grandfather. I barely remembered him. He'd died when I was 8. What I did remember was the way my parents never talked about him, how they'd always changed the subject when I'd asked about my father's side of the family. "I don't understand. My grandfather died almost 20 years ago." Mr. Winters nodded gravely. "Yes, and I've been looking for you for quite some time. May I come in? This concerns your inheritance." "Inheritance?" I let him in, my hands shaking slightly as I undid the chain lock. He settled into my only good chair and placed the envelope on my small dining table. "Your grandfather, Chen Wei-ming, was a very wealthy man. When he died, he left specific instructions that his fortune was to be divided equally between his 2 grandchildren when they each reached the age of 25. My heart began to race. 2 grandchildren? You and Miranda. However, there was a condition. The inheritance was to be kept secret until both grandchildren had reached the specified age. Your parents were appointed as trustees with strict instructions to treat both children equally until that time. The blood drained from my face. Equally? Mr. Winters opened the envelope and withdrew several documents. Your grandfather was very specific. He believed that hardship built character, but also that both grandchildren should have equal opportunities. He left detailed instructions that any financial support given to one grandchild should be matched for the other. I stared at the papers, trying to process what I was hearing. The $80 million Miranda received was half of your grandfather's estate. The other half belongs to you, plus interest accrued over the years. Additionally, there should have been equal support provided to you throughout your life: college tuition, living expenses, investments. Your grandfather was very clear about this. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. You're saying my parents have been stealing from me for 20 years? I'm saying they violated the terms of the trust in a significant way. The will specifically stated that if the trustees failed to follow the equal treatment clause, the wronged party would receive additional compensation from the trustees' personal assets. He handed me a bank statement. The number at the bottom had so many zeros, I had to count them twice. $85 million, plus additional damages to be determined. There's more, Mr. Winters said quietly. Your grandfather suspected something like this might happen. He knew your parents favored Miranda, so he included a rather unusual provision. He pulled out another document. If the trustees violated their duties, the wronged party would have the option to assume control of all family assets, including the trustees' personal wealth, business holdings, and properties. Essentially, you can take everything. I looked up at him, my vision blurring. Everything? Your parents are quite wealthy from their tech company, aren't they? The mansion they live in, the cars, the vacation homes, Miranda's new house, all of it could be yours. Your grandfather believed in justice, Mr. Chen. Eye for an eye, as it were. The papers felt heavy in my hands. 20 years of being treated like an afterthought. 20 years of watching Miranda get everything while I scraped by. 20 years of being told I wasn't good enough, wasn't responsible enough, wasn't worthy enough. What do I need to do? Mr. Winters smiled, but it wasn't a kind expression. Sign the papers. I'll handle the rest. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings that I barely understood, but trusted Mr. Winters to navigate. I took time off work, claiming a family emergency, which, in a way, it was. The first sign that something was happening came when Miranda's social media posts suddenly stopped. The second was when Mom called me, her voice tight with panic. Alex, we need to talk. There's been some kind of mistake with your grandfather's will. Can you come over? I could have gone to their house, the house I'd grown up in but never felt welcome in as an adult. Instead, I suggested we meet at a neutral location, the lawyer's office. The conference room was elegant, all dark wood and leather chairs. My parents sat on one side of the long table, Miranda beside them looking confused and slightly hungover. I sat across from them with Mr. Winters. Dad spoke first, his voice carrying that familiar, condescending tone. Alex, I don't know what this man has told you, but there's been some kind of clerical error. Your grandfather's will was very clear. Was it? I interrupted, sliding a copy of the real will across the table. Because according to this, Miranda and I were supposed to be treated equally. Every penny you gave her, you owed me. Mom's face went pale. Alex, sweetie, you don't understand how these things work. The money was in trust, and we made decisions based on what was best for the family. What was best for Miranda, you mean? My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. Let's do some math, shall we? Private school from kindergarten through 12th grade, that's about $300,000. I went to public school. Miranda's college tuition, room and board, plus the extra 2 years when she dropped out and went back, $200,000. I worked 3 jobs and took out student loans I'm still paying off. Miranda shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Alex, I didn't know. The BMW when you turned 16. The apartment deposit when you graduated. The investment in your failed jewelry business. The European vacation. The... Stop. Dad's voice cracked like a whip. We gave you a roof over your head. Food, clothing. We don't owe you anything. I laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Actually, you owe me quite a lot. Mr. Winters? The lawyer cleared his throat. Based on our calculations, the Chen family trustees have misappropriated approximately $2.3 million that should have gone to Alex over the years. Additionally, they violated the Equal Treatment Clause, which triggers the punitive damages section of the will. What does that mean? Miranda asked, her voice small. It means, I said, that everything you have belongs to me now. The house, the cars, the business, the offshore accounts, Miranda's trust fund, all of it. The room erupted. Dad shouted about lawyers and fighting this in court. Mom broke down crying, babbling about how they'd always loved me, how they'd never meant for this to happen. Miranda just stared at me like I was a stranger. Alex, please, she said finally. I never asked for any of this. I didn't know about Grandpa's will. Can't we work something out? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. In that moment, I saw not the spoiled golden child, but a scared 25-year-old who was about to lose everything she'd ever known. For a brief second, I wavered. Then I remembered the nights I'd gone to bed hungry because I'd spent my grocery money on textbooks. I remembered being turned down for apartments because I couldn't afford the deposits. I remembered watching Miranda post photos from her latest vacation while I worked overtime, just to keep my lights on. You had 25 years to notice the inequality, I said. 25 years to ask why I was struggling while you had everything. Did you ever once think it was unfair? She opened her mouth, then closed it. We both knew the answer. The transformation of my life was swift and surreal. One day I was Alex Chen, struggling restaurant worker. The next, I was Alexander Chen, multimillionaire heir to a tech fortune. Moving into my family's house, my house now, felt like stepping into an alternate reality. Everything was exactly as I remembered, but different. The family photos lining the hallway told a story I now saw clearly. Miranda at every birthday, every graduation, every milestone. Me, increasingly absent from the frames as I got older, as if I'd been slowly edited out of the family narrative. My parents had moved in with Mom's sister temporarily. Miranda was staying with friends, trying to figure out what came next. I'd offered her a small settlement, enough to start over, but a fraction of what she'd had before. She'd refused it. I don't want your guilt money, she'd said. It's not guilt money. It's what I would have given you if you'd been my sister instead of my parents' favorite. She'd walked away without another word. The first month was intoxicating. I paid off my student loans with the electronic equivalent of pocket change. I bought cars I'd only dreamed of, ate at restaurants where I used to work, traveled to places I'd seen only in Miranda's Instagram posts. But the satisfaction I'd expected, the sweet taste of revenge, never fully materialized. Instead, there was an hollowness that grew larger with each passing day. The tech company that had made my parents wealthy was now mine to run, but I knew nothing about running a business. The employees looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion. I was the prodigal son who'd returned to claim his birthright, but I had none of the skills or relationships necessary to actually lead. Worse still, the isolation was crushing. My few friends were uncomfortable around my sudden wealth, and I found myself suspicious of everyone's motives. Were they talking to me because they liked me, or because of what I could do for them? 3 months after the legal proceedings concluded, I was sitting in the living room of the mansion, staring out at the infinity pool, when the doorbell rang. Through the security system, I saw Miranda standing on the front steps, looking smaller somehow than I remembered. I almost didn't answer. We hadn't spoken since the day she'd refused my settlement offer, but something in her posture, the way her shoulders sagged, the way she kept looking back at the street as if considering leaving, made me open the door. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Can I come in? I want to show you something." I stepped aside and she walked into what had been her childhood home with the careful steps of a visitor. She sat on the edge of the couch, pulled out her phone, and handed it to me. On the screen was a news article. Local woman starts nonprofit for food insecurity. Below it was a photo of Miranda serving meals at a soup kitchen. "I've been volunteering," she said quietly. At first, I was just angry and didn't know what to do with myself. But then I started thinking about what it must have been like for you. Really thinking about it. I scrolled through the article. The nonprofit was called Second Chances, and it provided not just meals but job training and educational support for people struggling financially. I funded it with the jewelry I'd accumulated over the years, Miranda continued. Sold everything I could. It's not much, but it's something. I set the phone down. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to know that I finally understand. I can't undo 25 years of blindness, but I can try to do better going forward. She paused, then looked directly at me. And because I'm worried about you. Worried about me? I laughed bitterly. I'm rich, Miranda. I have everything I ever wanted. Do you? Because you look miserable. The words hit harder than I expected. I turned away, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the perfectly manicured garden. I thought this would feel different, I admitted. I thought I'd be happy. Revenge doesn't make people happy, she said softly. It just makes the pain stop for a while. So what am I supposed to do? Give everything back? Pretend like none of this happened? I don't know. But maybe we could figure it out together? I turned back to her. Together? We're still siblings, Alex. Broken, messed up, raised by parents who clearly had no idea how to be fair to both of us, but siblings nonetheless. She stood up. What if we used grandfather's money the way he probably intended? Not to hurt each other, but to actually build something good? The idea was radical in its simplicity. Instead of using the wealth as a weapon, we could use it as a tool. The business acumen I lacked, Miranda actually possessed. She just never had to use it because everything had been handed to her. My years of struggle had taught me empathy and resilience that she was only beginning to understand. What about Mom and Dad? I asked. They made their choices. They'll have to live with the consequences. Her voice was sad but firm. But that doesn't mean we have to let their mistakes define the rest of our lives. Over the following weeks, we began to rebuild not just our relationship, but our purpose. I moved out of the mansion. It held too many painful memories for both of us, and we sold it, using the proceeds to expand Second Chances into a full-scale organization focused on breaking cycles of financial inequity. Miranda took over day-to-day operations, while I focused on the areas where my experience mattered, understanding what it felt like to be overlooked, undervalued, struggling. Together, we created programs that addressed not just immediate needs, but systemic issues. We hired people who'd been written off by other employers. We provided microloans for small businesses. We created mentorship programs pairing successful professionals with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. Most importantly, we made sure that everyone who came through our doors was treated with equal dignity and respect. The irony wasn't lost on me. In seeking revenge against my family, I'd inadvertently created the opportunity for something far more valuable, a chance to ensure that other people never experience the casual cruelty of being considered less than by those who were supposed to love them unconditionally. Our parents reached out occasionally, usually through intermediaries, suggesting family therapy or reconciliation dinners. But some betrayals cut too deep for simple forgiveness. The money they'd stolen could be repaid, but the years of feeling worthless, unwanted, and inadequate had left scars that might never fully heal. That didn't mean I was consumed by bitterness anymore. Working with Miranda, seeing the impact our programs had on real people's lives, had given me something I'd never had before. A sense that my struggles had meaning, that they'd prepared me for something important. One evening, almost a year after Mr. Winters had knocked on my apartment door, Miranda and I were working late at the Second Chances office. She was reviewing grant applications while I finished up interviews with potential scholarship recipients. Alex? She said suddenly. Yeah. Do you think Grandpa knew? When he wrote the will, do you think he knew Mom and Dad would screw it up this badly? I considered the question. I think he was a smart man who understood human nature. Maybe he hoped for the best but planned for the worst. And maybe, she said quietly, he knew that sometimes people need to lose everything before they can figure out what actually matters. I looked around the office, modest but functional, filled with the organized chaos of people trying to make a difference. Outside, the city lights twinkled like earthbound stars, each one representing someone with dreams, struggles, hopes, and disappointments. This wasn't the revenge I'd planned. This wasn't the life I'd imagined when I'd signed those papers in Mr. Winter's office. But it was better than anything I could have conceived in my bitterness and pain. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better. And sometimes, the family you choose to build is stronger than the one you were born into. My phone buzzed with a text from one of our scholarship recipients. Got into nursing school. Thank you for believing in me when no one else would. I showed Miranda the message, and she smiled. The first genuinely happy expression I'd seen from her in months. Ready to go home? She asked, packing up her laptop. Home. Not the mansion where we'd grown up feeling either privileged or forgotten, but the small apartments we'd each rented in the same neighborhood, close enough to support each other, but independent enough to be our own people. Yeah, I said. Let's go home. As we turned off the lights and locked up the office, I caught my reflection in the window. The man looking back at me bore little resemblance to the bitter, broken person who'd been consumed by resentment just a year earlier. This man had purpose, peace, and something I'd never expected to find. The knowledge that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from refusing to let them turn you into someone you can't live with. The envelope a stranger had handed me had contained more than just legal documents and bank statements. It had contained the key to understanding that while I couldn't control how others treated me, I could control who I chose to become in response. And I chose to become someone my grandfather would have been proud of, not because of the money I'd inherited, but because of what I'd chosen to do with the second chance it had given me. That night, as I fell asleep in my modest but comfortable apartment, I felt something I hadn't experienced since childhood. The deep satisfaction of a day well spent in service of something larger than myself. The revenge was complete, but not in the way I'd originally planned. Instead of destroying my family, I'd saved the only part of it worth saving. Instead of becoming wealthy, I'd become rich in the ways that actually mattered. And instead of letting my parents' favoritism define me, I'd used it to fuel a mission that would outlast all of us, ensuring that no one else would ever have to choose between bitterness and redemption when the people who should have loved them equally simply failed to do so. In the end, the best revenge wasn't getting everything I thought I wanted. It was discovering that what I actually needed had been inside me all along, waiting for the right moment to emerge from the ashes of old pain and transform into something beautiful, lasting, and true.